Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name's Katie and today we're going to be talking about my favourite YA fantasy books. So I obviously love fantasy, but I feel like a lot of my favourites tend to be adult fantasy books, but there are some YA series which I absolutely adore and just will always have special places in my heart. And just I feel like YA fantasy is that perfect kind of palette cleanser, and it's always so like fun to read and like angsty, and often the characters are so lovable and you just like want to make them all your babies. And yeah, so I have lots to talk about today, so we'll just get started. So yeah, these are in no particular order, it's just the order I like have them in to pick up. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor and Muse of Nightmares, which I have the sequel on my Kindle, so I don't have it to hold up. But yeah, I love this series. So the world is kind of so magical and like immersive, and her writing is so like lyrical and lush and just really kind of draws you in and makes you want to keep reading. And the kind of mystery that we're unfolding, I feel like this is a really good book to go into not knowing too much and just kind of discovering it as it unfolds. So like we're following Laszlo, who's this kind of librarian, and he's always kind of dreamed of this mysterious, or kind of not dreamed of it, but like he's always been very interested in this mysterious city called Weep, which people don't really know much about. And one day he joins on this expedition to go and visit Weep with like all these other people and kind of discover its sort of secrets. So, and then when they get there, they discover lots going on. And yeah, and you also kind of follow this sort of family of very kind of, I don't know what to call them exactly. They're not demigods, they're like, so they have powers, we'll leave it at that, and just seeing how they kind of interact, and it's very interesting. So there's just so much to discover, and I love all the characters, they're very lovable, and just yeah, the writing, yeah, this is really kind of, it's quite like a slow book. It's not super like action packed and fast paced, but it's a beautiful one to kind of meander through and just like really immerse yourself in the atmosphere. So that's that one. Then next we have the Shadowhunter books, because I had to include these because I just love Shadowhunters. I mean, yeah, Cassandra Clare is probably quite problematic as an author, but also just the fact that I like grew up reading them, and just the characters will always like have special places in my heart. And I'm just holding this one because it's the first one I got, but like the new Last Hour series, I really enjoyed the first one and I'm really excited for the next one. I feel like it's kind of a bit more mature than the older ones, and just the characters, I love them, and yeah, so the series is just kind of special to me, so I just wanted to include it. So yeah. And next we have the Ace of Shades trilogy by Amanda Foody. So the first one is Ace of Shades, and then King of Fools, and then the last one is Queen of Vaults, which I don't actually own physically, but I have read. And this is such a good series. I feel like it's quite underrated, but it's kind of like, it's set in an almost similar to Las Vegas. It's called New Reigns city, and we're following, in the first one, we're following Anne, who's kind of traveling to the city because her mother has gone missing. So she's trying to discover what happened to her mother, and there she kind of teams up with this sort of gang leader, but he's not very good at it, Levi, and they're kind of working together. And there's this mysterious thing called the Shadow Game, which is where like the opponents or like it's like a card game, but like the player, unless they like beat it, they die at the end. And there's these mysterious like playing cards as well, and yeah, it's just, there's a lot of like mystery, and there's a lot of kind of gangster drama, and just like watching Levi and Anne sort of like work through all that, and it's really good, and they're both such great characters. And there's a lot of other characters as well, especially in the later two books. You're following like more POVs, and it just becomes this really expansive like city drama. And there's this one character called Sophia, who is, I think you might get her POV in the second book, but I feel like you maybe get it in the third book. And just her arc and storyline I love. She's kind of been brought up in this very like crime family, and they're kind of like the baddies. But and she's always been told like her magic's bad and stuff like that. But then watching her kind of defy her family, and just, oh, it's so good. And yeah, there's some heartbreak. The end of King of Fools. Oh. But yeah, it's really good. And if you like kind of like Six of Crows type thing, I think you really like this. Although it's quite different from Six of Crows. Like, it's not really a heist or that kind of thing, but like just the whole kind of city type dark vibes, I don't know, but yeah, it's really good, so I'd highly recommend that one. Next we have the Crown of Feathers and Heart of Flames. It's a trilogy, so the last one, Wings of Shadow, I think comes out in June or July, I think July this year. So yeah, I adore this series. It's so good. Like, so we're following this world, and about 20 years ago, or maybe like 17, there were these two sister queens, and one of them, I think they both died mysteriously, or not mysteriously, they both died in this war basically, and sort of brought an end to this like Phoenix Queen reign. So now there's this other kind of force that's like taking over the empire, and there's these secret Phoenix riders who are kind of training in secret. And the main character, Veronica, she sort of wants to be a Phoenix rider, and at the start of the book she finds a Phoenix like egg and the little baby Phoenix, and she sort of grows and bonds with it, and then she like runs away to the, or she doesn't run away, she goes to the Phoenix Riders to try and train with them, but they'll only accept like boys as Phoenix Riders, so she like poses as a boy to get involved. And she also has this sister called Val, who is she's very like emotionally, oh dear, I've ripped her, emotionally abusive sister, but her arc throughout the series, just like, it's kind of a descent of a villain arc, especially in Heart of Flames, and it's so good. I love descent of villain arcs. Yeah, and all the other characters, so like Veronica and then Tristan, who's like her friend that she meets at the Phoenix Rider training thing, they're both such cinnamon rolls, and they're so cute, and I feel like it's really nice to see in YA fantasy just these like cinnamon roll characters who are really kind, and like, especially Veronica, she's sort of, her kind of power comes from her kindness and like the goodness of her heart and how much she cares about the animals, and it's so good, and I love just seeing that in a fantasy because it's like wholesome and good. And then you also following another POV, what's he called, Sev, I think it's Sev, and he is like this guard, and he's sort of getting involved with these like rebels, and but I remember this scene where he's like walking with the llamas, and then he like walks off with the llama. That's a really random scene to have in my head. and he sort of befriends this other character called Caden, and then they sort of have a little thing going on, and yeah, there's just a lot, and it's really good, and it's just, oh, and the phoenixes, they're so cute, and yeah, the ending of Crown of Feathers is amazing. There's this whole like battle siege thing, and it is just so well written, and yeah, so I really love this series. Okay, then next we have The Rise of Kyoshi and The Shadow of Kyoshi, and I don't know if these are, I feel like they're YA, but these are following Avatar Kyoshi, who's a character from the Avatar: The Last Airbender TV show, but these follow like Kyoshi's backstory and her growing up. So in the first one, it's like Kyoshi kind of discovering that she's the Avatar, because in the world they actually think someone else is the Avatar, and an Avatar has these, like, I'm sure everyone kind of knows, but they have these like 4 powers and they can bend them, so like earth bending, air bending, water bending and fire bending, and the Avatar can do them all. So yeah, so Kyoshi, and they have like this connection to the spirit world as well. So yeah, Kyoshi finds out she's the Avatar, and then it's kind of in the first one, and she kind of, I can't remember exactly what happens, but I know she ends up with this like travelling crew of sort of criminals. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Mistborn, which is a funny comparison, but I feel like it fits. And the old Avatar, the one everyone thought was the Avatar, he sort of, in the second book, almost becomes a bit of a villain. So Kyoshi and Ranji is her bodyguard, so this is Ranji, the Fire Nation. She's so good, she's like tiny but fierce, and Kyoshi's really tall and like awkward, and they have a relationship as well, which is also another one of my favourite things in the book, like Kyoshi and Ranji, oh, OTP, oh, I love them. And in this book, Kyoshi and Ranji are trying to like find their old friend who everyone thought was the Avatar at first, because he's kind of gone a bit off the rails. And just, yeah, and so there's a lot going on, and also Kyoshi has kind of, the previous Avatar before her has caused quite a lot of chaos in the world. He wasn't a very good Avatar, so Kyoshi's also trying to deal with that. And like there's something going in the second book, there's like a big Fire Nation kind of queue going on, and yeah, so it's really good. And if you like Avatar, it's just the nostalgia and like, but even if you haven't read Avatar, I feel like Kyoshi's a great character in herself and the story, so you could easily understand the story without having read it, and you just want sapphics. Yeah, so I really love this series as well. Then next we have the Shadow of the Fox series by Julie Kagawa. So the first one is Shadow of the Fox, then Sword of the Sword, then Knight of the Dragon, and this is a great series. Like, I feel like the first one was okay, but like the second two I really loved, although I'm still angry with Night of the Dragon, but we'll leave that. And it's just following this like little squad of characters as they're going on their adventures. And in the first one, so we're following Yumeko, who's this half kitsune, and she's been brought up in this kind of monastery, but one day the monastery sort of gets burnt down, but she's told by one of the monks she has to run away with this scroll and like get it to a certain place. So she's running away, and along the way she meets Tatsumi, who is this like assassin. I think he's an assassin, and he is also on the hunt for this scroll, but Yumeko kind of teams up with him without telling him that she's got the scroll. And then they sort of go on these adventures, and I feel like the first one they're sort of going and they're meeting these other characters and like adding them to their little group, and then the second one you have the whole group dynamic, which is so good. And there's this, Tatsumi has this sword, who's kind of an evil sword almost, and Kodake Mono, and oh, I love him, like the spirit of the sword, or the soul of the sword. Yeah, he's so good, and just there's lots going on. You also follow this like ghost character. She only has a few like interludes, but she's also really good. I love ghosts, and just the kind of Japanese mythology is so cool. And yeah, but I feel like the highlight is definitely the character interactions. And yeah, them going on this mission and and then it becomes this like prophecy with this, I think it's a dragon that they're trying to like wake or not wake. Yeah, and there's some evil characters and stuff, and it's just really good. It's such a fun ride, and yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I'd highly recommend, and the covers are so pretty. Yeah, so that's this one. Okay, then next we have The Never Tilting World and The Evercool Kingdom by Rinchi Pecco. So I have actually only read The Never Tilting World, but I'm including it because I know this is one of my favourite series. So Rinchi Pecco is a great author. I also love her Bane Witch trilogy, but I feel like this one I just love slightly more. In this one we're following this world where it's kind of two halves of the world, like so there's the hot half and the cold half. That's the best way I can describe them. And you're following these two princesses who are sisters, but they've been separated all their lives. And so one is the princess of the cold half, and then the other is the princess of the hot half. And they both are travelling kind of separately to this big rift in the middle. And along the way, you're just kind of following their journey. And so the cold half princess, Adette, she has a bodyguard called Lan, who is great. I love her. And they sort of have a bit of a relationship brewing. Or it's not actually brewing, because I feel like it's at the start of the book they're sort of together, and then it gets a bit complicated. But yeah, so they have I love Princess and the Bodyguard, and then Sapphic as well. Yeah, but Adette kind of has this mysterious like prophecy, and she's sort of almost getting more evil. And then Heidi is also travelling to this rift, and so she's the other princess from the hot half. And along the way she meets this other character called Arjun, who's like this little Hufflepuff himbo. And I know I shouldn't use Hufflepuff because we don't talk about J.K. Rowling because she's a big asshole and a tiff, and yeah, I hate her, but it's a good way to describe him. I will try not to use that language in the future, but yeah, and they sort of end up like fighting all these sand monsters, and it's an adventure. And I love the romances, both the romances, they're so cute. I feel like it's quite romance heavy. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what the second one brings. So yeah, that's this series. Okay, and then we have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, and I love these editions. I bought them for myself when we went to London on a trip last year, pre-COVID. Oh, that's a long time ago. Yeah. Oh, why is everything ripped? We've got a little tear in the bottom, but I like to damage my books. Look at the backs. Oh, they're so pretty. Yeah, I just love this series. I feel like it's probably one of the most hyped series on BookTube, so you probably know what it's about. But it's basically following these 6 characters, and they are going on this heist to the ice court to try and steal so there's this new drug in the world which is like giving the Grisha are like the magical people, like super extra abilities, and it's like sending them crazy. So they're trying to infiltrate this court and find this like scientist who invented this Judaperem, which is the kind of crazy drug. And yeah, so Kaz, who's like this gang leader, gets hired, and he hires this crew, and they have to go and infiltrate this ice court, which is like this unbreakable fortress to try and rescue this person. So yeah, so it's really good. The characters are just some of my favourite characters. I love them, and I feel like this was a series that I loved like before BookTube, so, and just I've read it like 3 or 4 times and I just love it. It's so like nostalgic to me now, and I'm really excited for the TV show. I think that's gonna be so exciting. But yeah, it just the whole atmosphere, like the Kaeya Dam, and I love that setting. And yeah, I love the characters, like especially Inej and Nina. I love them both. And oh, Wylan. Yeah, Kaz, so angsty but so funny. And yeah, I just love them. And like, especially, yeah, Nina and her like bunny confidence, and that meant so much to me, especially when I read it. Like, I feel like I needed that at the time. It's just a really fun series, and yeah. Ugh, I always run out of things to say. Next one is possibly my like favourite YA fantasy series. I know I said I wasn't ranking them, but I have to. And that is the 7 Uncharted Realms series by Cindy Williams-Chimer. So I just love this series. Like, I think I reread Shattered Realms, which is the second series, about 3 or 4 times. I feel like I'm due for a reread because I haven't read them in like 6 months, so it's time for a reread. But yeah, I adore this series. So the first series is 7 Realms, and it's set in the world of the 7 Realms, and we're mainly in the what is it called, the Fells? I think I'm getting confused with Graceling and the Dells, but the like queendom. I think it's the Fells. I'm pretty sure it's the Fells. But yeah, so we're mainly set in that queendom, and rather than the other 6 realms or whatever. And we're following the Princess Racer, and also this like criminal type character called Han. And at the start of the book, Han steals this like magical amulet which has the power of this mysterious demon king, and then Han's kind of being hunted by these like powerful wizards because he now has this mysterious amulet. So that's kind of one storyline. And they're also following Racer and her kind of navigating court life because she's just returned from like the mountains where half her family live, and now she's trying to become back in court. And their sort of storylines interact, and then they become much more interacting with each other later on in the series, or later in the later books. And like the second book is this like magical school setting, which is so good. And yeah, so I just love that series. But I love this spin-off series, so the second series, and it's basically following children from the first series and also some new characters. But just the characters, and in the first series as well, but the characters in the second one, I love them all so much. Like, oh, they're like my babies. And you have dragons as well, like the dragons, and in Deathcaster, which is the last one, you get baby dragons, and they're so cute, and just, oh yeah. And yeah, so in the second series, we kind of following, so the characters from the first series, and also some of the kind of aftermath of what's happened in the first book series, but just like a generation later. And then we also have these new characters who are these like mage marked characters, and they have like mysterious mage marks on the back of their neck, and they're being hunted by this like mysterious empress called Celestine, and Celestine. And yeah, so, and those characters kind of end up interacting with the old characters, and it's so good. Well, not the old characters, the like children of the old characters. Oh, it's complicated. But yeah, I just love it. Like the whole, I feel like the kind of setting, it's very like Austrian mountain type setting, and I just really love that. And yeah, just like the politics between all the countries and the characters, oh, especially in the second series. Yeah, it's a really good series. I need more people to read it because it's like no fandom, and it's really sad. So yeah. And then we also have the Graceling series by Kirsten Kishore, and I feel like this one's getting a bit popular now because of the release of Winterkeep, which I loved Winterkeep so much. It's probably one of my favourites in the series, along with Fire. So they kind of, I would say they're companion books more rather than direct sequels. I would say the only ones that are kind of really, well, I guess Winterkeep now as well, but like Graceling and Bitterblue are quite connected, but Fire's kind of separate because it's set like in the past. But they do, so Graceling, Fire and Bitterblue, the first 3 they're all connected in the sense that the kind of main villain is always the same, even though it's sort of, he's a different kind of like he's a different villain in a different way. Because so in the first one, he's like actively the villain, he's there and he's like evil and whatever. And then Fire, he's a child, and he is causing chaos in like Fire's kingdom because she's in a separate kingdom. And then in Bitter Blue, you're following the kind of aftermath of his death and the sort of impacts he's had on this world, and how they're kind of healing from that. So yeah, and then Winterkeep, it has kind of a separate villain, so but yeah, but I love this series. Like, all the characters are so good. They're kind of each of the main characters. So Graysling Cats is the main character, and then Fire, and Bitter Blue, and then Winterkeep, I'd say Lavisa. And they all just have so much kind of strength and like really embody kind of feminist ideals, but they're also different as well. Like, it's showing all the different ways to like be a woman and be an empowered woman. And also the series, they always like talk about contraception and stuff, and like sex positivity, which I think is really good, but also just the different ways you can have relationships. Like, Kat says like she very much doesn't want to be married, and like that's okay. And then Fire, she like wants to be married but she doesn't want children, like that's okay. And then Bitter Blue is just had these like very complicated because of how she's kind of grown up. And same with Lavisa as well, just like the kind of abuse they've suffered is kind of impacting on what they want now, and that kind of thing. And I feel like it's just so kind of interesting, and there's a lot of sort of feminist empowerment, but also it's a really great fantasy series. Like, the Greyslings are so cool. They have all these different powers. Like in the first one, Katza, she's kind of has this ability to like, I think it might be a spoiler if I tell you what exactly her like power is, but she sort of uses her power to like assassinate people basically with the king at the beginning. And then Fire's not a Graysling, so we'll talk about that in a bit. And then Bitter Blue also isn't a Graysling, and neither is Lavisa. So anyway, but Greyslings in the world have this power. And like, so another character, Harvard, who's in Bitter Blue, she has this like power to transform herself, like how people see her, so she can like transform herself into objects or like make herself invisible, that type of thing. Yeah, so yeah, that kind of thing. And yeah, and then in Fire, this is just a complete tangent, I'm sorry, this doesn't make any sense, but anyway, Fire is a monster, and it's in this other kingdom called the Dells, and so the monsters, they're kind of like magical. They can like see into people's thoughts and sort of alter perceptions, and she has this like really colourful hair, and you get these like monster animals as well. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it's a great series. I would highly recommend. There wasn't really a synopsis there, but if you made anything from that, then I applaud you. Then the last series I want to talk about really quickly, because these videos are getting really long, is the Girl of Fire and Thorns series. So the Girl of Fire and Thorns was the other one's Crown of something? No, Ember of Crowns? No, Crown of Embers? I can't remember the other two names. One might be called the Bitter Kingdom, and then the last one is the Empire of Dreams. And I really love this series. Elisa is such a great character. So she's kind of gets sent to this other kingdom to become the wife of the king or the prince. It's either the king or the prince. And she has to kind of navigate that political like court life, and there's a lot of sort of conspiracies going on, but she also struggles with binge eating and like body image, and I feel like that's also really, especially in the first book, that's really an interesting thing to explore in a YA, and I really like seeing that. And Elisa's kind of inner strength and like inner resilience is so great, and she's such a great character. And also, so it's not really in the first book, but in the later books she has this relationship with a guard called Hector, and it's like the princess and the bodyguard type trope, and their relationship is so good, like so angsty, especially the second book. Like, chef's kiss is so good. It's like, yeah, one of the best YA relationships. Oh, I love them. Yeah, so I love that, and it's just a really good series. Like, the setting's cool, and yeah, so that's that one. Okay, so in the comments let me know what your favourite YA series is. I would really love to know, or fantasy series anyway. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Oh, I can't believe I forgot to mention any Sarah J Maas. I also love Sarah J Maas books, just for the record. Yeah, and I hope you're all having a great day, and I will see you next time.